So tell us a little about when you say, okay, I'm not going to evacuate, I'm going to ride out this storm, or maybe you're put in a position where you are riding out a storm. What needs to take place there? What do you recommend? I mean, the day before or whatever it is.
Okay, well, again, hopefully you do have an emergency plan in place, a checklist.
Right, that
of
we went
supplies.
over in the prior video.
Yeah, and you need to have supplies ready to go.
Yeah.
You need to assume that the utilities are going to be out. Whenever a storm comes through, regardless of the strength, utilities likely do go out. Electricity first, which often leads to water being out, your plumbing, your sewage, that kind of stuff. Gas is not safe to have. You need to probably turn the gas off if you have a natural gas house, because leaks can happen depending on the strength of the storm and damage that can be done. So you just need to prepare and assume that those are going to be out.
Right.
Electricity, not just for you and your house, but for the entire neighborhood, the city, perhaps the county, depending on how far this could go. So be aware of those things. You need things like cash on hand, because ATMs probably won't work. You need food, because stores aren't going to be able to buy or to sell you food and supplies. You're not going to be able to run through the fast food stuff and just pick up a meal. You're going to have to be ready to prepare those kind of things ahead of time. So hopefully you have that checklist in place and you have those supplies on hand. During the storm itself, again, expecting those things to go out. You want to, one of the things I recommend is filling your bathtubs with water. Well, why do you do that? Well, you need water to be able to flush toilets if the plumbing's not going to be working. Not necessarily to drink, although you can in an emergency situation, but just to be able to function, to kind of wash and bathe yourself a little bit, and for those kind of emergency things. So filling the bathtub is a good thing. If you're preparing to ride out the storm, two things to be aware of, really. Typically in hurricanes, the hurricane itself is not what is most dangerous. The largest loss of lives in hurricanes are from flooding and storm surge, kind of combining that number in one, and then also spin up tornadoes. So tornadoes are much more common and do a lot more damage when a hurricane is around, because of the atmosphere and the way it's prone to have tornadoes happen at that time. So it's not the sustained winds that does damage long-term to houses. That's what knocks down homes and will push and do extended damage, trees, and those kind of things. But tornadoes are likely to happen when hurricanes come. So you need to be aware of the safest room in your house. If you're going to stay in your home, you need to know what's the safest, most structurally sound room in my home that I can get into. Take mattresses or some kind of cushions that you have to be aware of debris that could fall potentially if a tornado does move through or those kind of things happen. So again, just I guess it's being alert and aware ahead of time of knowing what's our plan going to be. If we do stay and flooding becomes an issue, do we have a place to go? Do we have a higher place? Are we in a single-story dwelling, a two-story? Do we have a roof or a crawl space? Hopefully it doesn't happen, but if you're riding it out, emergency services cannot get to you. They cannot come out in the middle of a hurricane if it's making landfall. And if you're stuck in your attic crawl space and the water is rising, you're pretty much stuck. There's not much that can be done. So you need to know, if this does happen, what do I do? What do I do in this situation? What's my emergency procedure? Because deciding as it's happening is not the best time to do that.
I've talked to some people who have ridden out a storm where there was rising water in their home. They went to the attic, retreated there, and then they found themselves wishing that they had an axe, a crowbar, a thing, just in case the water continued to rise, that they could make themselves an access out of the actual roof of the house. So going back into some of the other preparation things, you mentioned filling the tub. I've heard things of like set the freezer on and refrigerator on the coldest setting. Yeah, pretty good idea.
Also a pretty good idea. Yeah, you can prepare for that. You can even fill it with water jugs to kind of take up some space and help that water freeze, another way to kind of store water and save water. But if you do that, what you do is you give yourself a little bit more time if the power does go out. For a day or two, you can probably kind of get through without everything being destroyed in your refrigerator. If it's out for a week or two, there's not much you can do. But if the power's out for just a couple days, having that super cold and keeping some ice in there, either in water jugs or ice packs, could help save some of that food. And you only want to use that refrigerator as sparingly as possible. You don't want to keep opening it, going in and out. If you know something's in there, you want to grab it, go in quickly, and kind of keep it closed as much as possible. But that's a good tip to have that done. Again, we talked about the safe rooms in the house. We talked about just kind of knowing the reality of what it is. Candles are not necessarily the safest. If you have some sort of battery-powered flashlights or lanterns. That's better. That's safer than candles. Lighting a lot of candles around the house is not really a good idea. It's a fire hazard.
The LED makes these lights last a lot longer now.
Absolutely.
So you can have batteries that will go for days, really. I mean, with the LED options.
Have some battery operated radios, or they even make some televisions that you can kind of get emergency services.
Yeah.
Even if the power doesn't go out, you may not have access to your cable provider or you know, TV source. So that would be a thing you'd want to have, some kind of backup to get emergency notifications. Be aware that your phones will probably not work depending on the damage. The cell service may be down completely, or just maybe overwhelmed in a situation like that.
A lot of people forget this.
So you just want to have a backup as far as a phone or some way to access without internet, you know, without those kind of things, to be able to reach out to those around you. Again, it's kind of that balance. You know, Hurricane Ivan changed a lot of perception for us here on the Gulf Coast, and it kind of made things a little more real. Look, I'm always going to err on the side of evacuate first and come back to a great, you know, day and a perfect home. And just say, well, oh well, you know, we took a trip and maybe we were overcautious. I'd always recommend that versus planning the party and just kind of riding out and see what happens. And again, like there is, you know, some consideration to the strength. You know, tropical storm again can still be dangerous. You know, even if it's a weak Category 1, can still be dangerous and can still do damage, and a tree may fall on some homes. You know, it's kind of the overall situation. It's how much destruction we're talking about, massive versus localized, but still it's dangerous. So just be aware of that. Know that you're making a decision. Know that you're confident in the decision. If you're confident in staying, then great. But don't be hesitant. Don't be wishing we would have made a better plan. Make the plan now. Know here's our cutoff, here's our decision, and then put it in place and be confident about that plan.
With people that do choose to stay and they have the utilities go out, I think of things that are needed, like generators. I mean, if you need to remain cool or in any way, I mean, and a whole house generators are very expensive. But if you have just a simple generator, you might be able to keep just a couple of appliances going for a while. Charge your cell phone if there's cell service, or maybe a window unit, or maybe an actual refrigerator. And maybe a Coleman stove or something like that. Get out the camping gear, you know.
And if you do have a generator, do not put it inside a garage or inside the house. Carbon monoxide is an issue there. Do not hook it up to your whole house system. Do not try and plug that in or work that into your power box outside. They are designed to be outside and run only a few appliances at one time. Like you said, a backup stove, same type of thing. If it's a propane style or a gas style or even a charcoal, do not bring that inside the house and cook. Keep that grill or that stove outside, depending on the situation. Just, you know, those kind of awareness situations of safety type features that you'd have for backup appliances and stuff.
Things in the yard.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. What happens to things in the yard?
They become flying projectiles that work as torpedoes or missiles that go through windows. And maybe not even your windows. Your lawn chair may hit a house, you know, 2 blocks over. You need to clear up everything from your yard ahead of time, put it away, put it in a shed, in the garage, get it off. Get lawn chairs, tables, you know, anything, any decorations, any flags, anything that's out in the yard, get rid of it. Grills, all that stuff, move it into a safe place, because it will get picked up and it will get thrown. I mean, you'll see demonstrations, they're easy to find, of 2x4s going through, you know, walls, going through concrete or brick walls. It's just the strength of a hurricane. You're talking about sustained winds potentially 100 to 150 miles an hour depending on the storm. And tornadoes can be even stronger once they spin up within that environment. So remove any debris, get it off the yard, out of your driveway, and hope that your neighbors do the same thing, because they can
help your neighbors do the same. Say, hey, can I help you with these chairs? You know, I'll be glad to help. Okay. Thank you for watching, preparing your home for the hurricane, and we wish you well.